I'm thrilled to be joined today by Lily Lyman, Managing Partner at Underscore VC. Thank you so much for being here. And will you start by sharing a little bit about Underscore?
Sure. Underscore VC is an early stage venture firm based here in Boston. We invest at the earliest stages, so that's usually pre-seed or seed. We're usually the first institutional capital. We invest entirely in B2B software, so whether that's future of work, vertical SaaS, B2B fintech, or emerging infrastructure. And we invest with what we call a community-driven model to venture. We engage a network of experts, whether they're functional experts, domain leaders, or seasoned executives, and we engage them in everything we do as a venture firm, whether it's sourcing new investments or helping to build great companies after we've invested. And that's what we do here at Underscore VC.
Great. And when you are thinking about deploying capital, what do you tend to like to see? So many founders have questions about, what traction metrics do investors want to see? What other signals of success do folks want to see? What does Underscore look for?
So at the earliest stages, the most important things that we look for are team, market opportunity, and value prop, or what problem are you solving? And the most important out of those is team. Team. And when we talk about team, we are looking for some of the specific attributes of the founder themselves. So we are looking for a unique insight or unique experience that gives them an edge to being successful in going after this endeavor. So why you? Why are you the right person to take on this problem? We also look for the ability to learn really quickly, so aptitude. We talked a little bit about heat-seeking missiles. Are you somebody who rapidly learns? Can you iterate? And can you find your way to where the opportunity is? We also look for authenticity. Do you know yourself? Do you know your strengths? Do you surround yourself with other folks that complement your strengths? Like how self-aware are you? And then finally, we look for folks who can attract people around them, whether it's your early hires or perhaps a co-founder or advisors or early customers and then ultimately investors. You need to be able to attract people around you, sell the vision, get people excited about what you're doing. So we spend most of our time getting to know the team. The second thing that we look for is market opportunity. So is this a big enough market, or is there a path to unlocking a market that can be big enough for a venture scale return? And so for us, that we think about, is there a feasible path to $100 million revenue business here? And it might take a while, and it might be navigating and winding, but is the capability can the market support that? And then the third thing we look for is value proposition, or your product offering. And what we're really looking for is the problem that you're solving. Is it a big enough pain point to your target customer that they'll be willing to pay for it? Who's going to get fired if you don't solve this problem? Is this a burning problem? Is it top 3 for somebody, or is it a nice to have? And so we like to look at, what is the problem that you're solving, and then what is your unique approach to solving it, and what is that insight that you're bringing to the table? Because we invest in early stages, sometimes it's just team and a really good articulation of those two other things. Sometimes there's product live in the hands of paying customers, and you can start to see the pull. We think about pull motion versus push. If someone's pulling your product in or pulling you in to develop the solution, it's a signal of a real pain point here. So that's what we look for. It's team, market, and then the value prop.
Thank you. Given the business that we are in, helping founders with their cap table, with their data room, we get a lot of questions about how they need to be prepared, how they need to get their house in order. What do you look for, when you are thinking about investing, from a data room and sort of organization and preparation standpoint?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think the most important thing to think about is we always use this phrase, the process is the proof. So how you show up in a fundraising process, and that's everything from how you respond to emails, how you show up in the first meeting, how you follow up, what are your materials. Every single touch point you have with an investor is a moment to evaluate each other on both sides. And so that's what we're looking at, is what will it be like to work with you for the next 7, 10, 12 years. So think about that in every interaction you have, and that's why being organized is a helpful way to give yourself a leg up in the process. I think one of the most important things is to build your investor list and start to build those introductions and those relationships early. So do your desk research, figure out who's going to be a good fit for you based on stage, based on domain, and also sort of what is their offering, why might you want to work with them. There's a lot of research, there's a lot out there on investors, and so it's always a turnoff if I get an inbound email from someone saying, oh, I have a consumer company, or I have a med tech company. I'm like, oh, you clearly didn't even read my website, because we do B2B software. So do your research, and then figure out how can you get introduced to these investors. Look for warm connections. Largely, going through a portfolio company is one of the strongest ways to get connected to an investor, but also through experts, in our case, our core community, or other co-investors, are all effective ways to get those introductions. And build those relationships early, get to know them, understand what they're interested in, and start to tell your story over time. And then when it comes actually time for fundraising, make sure that you have your deck, and in your deck you should be able to clearly articulate what is the problem that you're solving, why does this problem matter, why does it matter now, is there something going on from a technology perspective or a market dynamic that is sort of a why now. Make sure you talk about your team and why you're uniquely qualified to go after this. Demonstrate what you've learned or done to date, so show your traction, and then talk about where you're going. So what are your milestones? How are you going to prove out your next set of hypotheses? What is the business going to look like in 18 to 24 months? And why are you raising capital? And also don't forget how much capital you're raising to do what. So that should be in your deck. And then having a good data room is also really important, and it's a good look for nothing else. So you should have your operating plan in place, your cap table, and if you have any backup materials about your early customers or your product, your sales pipeline, things like that. The more you can sort of give a full picture to investors and build your credibility that you know what you're doing in terms of how to build this business and that you're going to do it really effectively, it's an opportunity to shine.
I love that idea. The process is the proof. I mean, that the way a founder runs that process is an indicator of what type of CEO they will likely be in the future.
Exactly.
So, Underscore is so beloved, so well known here in Boston especially, but elsewhere as well, for not only being an incredible investment partner to founders, but for all of the connections that you foster, the way that you engage and strengthen the ecosystem. What makes Underscore different? Why might a founder prefer to work with Underscore above anyone else?
Oh, you're kind to say that, and it's a privilege. The founding thesis of Underscore was driven by this idea of community, and if you can introduce the right person to a company at the right time, it can really change the trajectory of the business. And we're inspired by the world of open source software with these ideas of communities of people with aligned incentives, which is an important piece, working together to create outsized value. And so we're big believers of rising tides raise all ships, and so we want the ecosystem here and the community to be thriving and connected. And that's why we've taken this core community model. So we now have hundreds of folks who are engaged in what we're doing, whether it's introducing us to new companies, whether it's getting involved in our companies through our core partner program, where we actually share some of our carry with specific advisors to get them involved in companies, or jumping in as hires or whatever it might be. So I think we're really believers that people are the needle mover in a business, and so we want to bring the right group of people around a company. And so I think that's a lot of reason why we get selected, or why founders come to us is for that community approach. I think the other piece is we've all been operators, we've done it before, and we spend a lot of time with our founders working from this earliest stage to finding product market fit. And we help you think through, do you have the right milestones? Are you hiring the right people? How to think about building that organization? How do you get those early customers? And then ultimately, how do you tell your story and meet the right investors to be successful for a Series A once you've found that product market fit? So we think of ourselves as early stage company builders, both ourselves as our team, but also our broader community. And if we're doing our job right, hopefully you think of us as an extension of your team who's in your corner to help you be successful. And the other thing that's important to us is we try to be good humans in doing it. I think there's a lot of puffery in the venture ecosystem, and I think hopefully leading with a little bit of humility, and hopefully it can go a long way, and we can change the way that venture can be done.
Love it. So last, what has you excited here in Boston right now?
It's funny. I think a good friend says that Boston's always in the playoffs. It's always an interesting ecosystem. I think sometimes it gets underestimated, but there's so much to be excited about. Last year Boston had actually came in number 2 after San Francisco in seed and Series A fundraising. And so it's always an interesting ecosystem, particularly in the B2B software space. I think everyone thinks of it as healthcare, but there's actually a lot going on in B2B SaaS, in fintech, in MarTech, in AI, of course, in supply chain logistics, and then also in things like insurance and financial services. Boston's been a home for that for decades. And so as you think about the next generation of that. So there's a lot of interesting activity even beyond healthcare, which is obviously an exciting area. The other thing that we get excited about is the academic ecosystem here. We, over a third of our portfolio comes out of places like Harvard, MIT, Northeastern, BU, some of these great academic institutions. There are over 250,000 students coming through this town every year. There's more STEM degrees issued here than anywhere else in the world. So it's a rich talent pool that's evergreen. And so that makes us excited. I think the other piece is there's cutting edge research happening in this town all the time. I think almost everything that the world actually knows about AI probably started at MIT at some point. And so that combination of tech and talent is particularly exciting. And then I think the third thing we're excited about is some of these homegrown Boston companies like Toast and HubSpot and Klaviyo. They're starting to spin out the next generation of entrepreneurs, and we're very excited about that talent. I think it's a great time to be building because you can get access to really good talent. There's still capital out there for the entrepreneurs that have the grit to build in this environment. I think some of the best companies are going to be built in this chapter. So we're very excited.
I love it. I'm long on Boston also.
Right.
Thank you so much, Lily.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for all you do for the ecosystem and what you're doing for this community. We're very grateful to partner with you.